Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I'm your host and guide, Zollin Ironshield, and we have our guest Jethros here, who is also a RiseToWar specialist. Okay. and we're going to go ahead and talk about Galadriel today, my friends. So we have a couple fun ideas for you guys. I hope you all enjoy. And we are basically going to give you two different builds. And he is the expert on Galadriel. I am not. So we're going to go ahead and turn this over to him. So two different questions for you. He has two wonderful builds for PvP, depending on the type of commanders or side of good or evil you're fighting. So Jethros, why don't you go ahead and explain the first build that you think for whichever side you would like to start with.
Yeah, so I'll start with the evil side build first because you can get it at R3, which is really cool. You don't even need her R5 to benefit. But no matter what build you're going to do with her, I will always say she is at heart a focus damage dealer. So she's going to benefit from having that Mistress of Magic, Focus Wrath, and Surge abilities to get her a ton of elemental damage. In this case, it's focus damage. Mm-hmm. And so she's really, really good and really strong with that. As much focus as you can get her, she'll always benefit from it. Almost everything she has scales with it. And so no matter what build you're doing, getting focus will always help you out with that build. So just that being said, whatever build you're going to do, I would just say get that tree maxed out first. Okay. The only thing is if you are trying to do very early tile taking with her, which I do not recommend, you can just distribute points between her R5 ability, Nanya Guardian, and the healing, just 2 and then 1 in the healing and then 2, because she's only getting focus off of the R5, which doesn't do anything, and you're just trying to get that healing, because that healing in the R5 tree, yes, that Ring of Water, that is really, really good. It doesn't technically scale with focus, but it gives so much healing for one unit that if you just have a stack of a single unit, it will heal just so much in the early game. But you know, she's not going to do very much damage herself, which is why I recommend putting her in the back until you can mock battle, and then maybe start her off at somewhere between level 30 and 35 where you can really get her her focus damage going, and then trickle into some of these other trees. Okay. So with the evil side though, obviously you guys should all be familiar with the White Council tree because you've probably seen it on like multiple other commanders. What makes this tree so useful is its high alert ability, which gives elemental damage resistance. So when you max it out, you could get it up to 50% focus, burn, and poison damage received reduction. You get 50% reduction. Also, White Council itself reduces the first few incoming hits, which is what most PvP focused commanders try to do, is they try to do damage quick and fast and early and hit hard in the beginning, and then if you can resist those hard-hitting damages, then basically you can survive into the late game, and she has a decent amount of sustain to help her after that point. Mm-hmm. Also, in the White Council tree, you'll have the other Champion of Light skill, which is really good against evil because Orc Urkhine Trolls are obviously all evil, so your only weakness there will be if you're dealing with evil men, then you're not going to want to put points in there. But most of the time, evil side commanders are going to benefit from having these types of troops, and so it's definitely worth considering to let your units do more damage to your enemies. And with this type of composition, you would definitely want to run 3 different unit types instead of just 1, because her White Council can apply to each individual unit, and giving up to 4 instances of damage reduction if you have it fully maxed out.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Okay. All right. So there's that for evil, and then if you're going into good, instead of
sorry,
go ahead.
What for everyone? What is the order of skills? Let's give her a flat baseline for all of these builds. Rank 5. Let's say you're probably almost level 50 at this point. What are the order of skills that they do for that first build for evil? Like which one to focus on as she's leveling and getting points?
Because it's only really requiring 2 trees. It's
pretty much just this tree and this tree.
It's just pretty much all of them. The only thing I will say is maybe think about doing a Champion of Light like last.
Okay.
Or you could suffer on a little bit of focus damage, and you could just deal with putting 1 point into Focus Wrath, because it does apply Madness, but she actually does well using the skill for damage. So you don't have to treat it like a 1 point wonder when you get so much damage off of it.
Yes. Okay.
So you could consider doing that one last too if you want your armies to do a little bit more damage to evil units.
Got it. So they're going to want to obviously max out Surge, max out White Council, make sure High Alert's maxed, and then at that point, and Champion Line probably last, Force and Wrath next. Excuse me, Focus Wrath, and then Champion of Light. So that's that build, and then what if they had extra points?
Yeah, I would say that's
50?
A pretty good way to go there, for sure.
What if they had extra points at 50 at that point? Would they put it in Lady of Lorien or the Nenya?
If you had extra points, I would just trickle them into Ninya's Guardian, the R5 skill, and the healing skill that she has, Ring of Water, and that will do a good healthy chunk of damage and boost her, or a good healthy chunk of healing. Plus, it will boost her damage from her damage abilities.
Got it. Cool. All right, so now back onto the second one then. The one against good commanders.
So if you're fighting against good, basically you do the same Mistress of Magic tree, and then instead of going to White Council after you complete that, you would go into Ninya's Guardian, and you would put points into the healing and into Magical Barrier, because Magical Barrier gives a bunch of armor to your allies, to your allied units. It'll basically scale with focus, and I've seen her. She can get such high focus that it almost gives them like 50 to 60 armor, which is really great against most good side, because most good side units and commanders don't do any type of elemental damage.
Yeah, like a lot of the dwarves, they're all physical damage. Yeah, okay, all right. So then in this one more, they'd be full out the Mistress tree, then pretty much full out this tree at a certain point. Right? Do they focus on doing the Ring of Water in the Nenya tree first, or the Magical Barrier?
I think you do it evenly. You put 2 points in Ninya's Guardian, then the healing and the Magical Barrier.
Okay.
And then another 2 points, and just keep going. I guess I would probably do the healing first, and then the Magical Barrier second, if I was just doing 1 point at a time.
Got it. All right, perfect. So then now what if they max up both trees and they have a little extra for this second build you're saying? Which one would you...
I'd say just put the remainder points into White Council and High Alert.
Okay.
Just in case anything comes up that you weren't expecting.
Got it. Like
you
Gandalf
do have the option, since we haven't really talked about it all. I did want to mention that in the Lady of Lorien tree, she has a debuff mechanic on her Purity skill, which gives her a chance of all of her allies potentially removing a random debuff each round. And that's pretty good, but because you have to put points into Lady of Lorien, it's kind of hard to justify it.
Okay.
And you'd be surprised how little of a difference that the bonus recovery makes in her actual ability to heal. So
yeah, that makes sense, because she only really has this one, right? And then
the parting gift skill is there, but in most PvP type fights, you're not gonna last always until round 8.
Yeah.
And even if you do, probably a couple of your units have been killed by then. And that particular ability, since it affects all allies, benefits if you still have all 3 of your unit types alive. That's when you'll get the most value out of that skill.
Okay.
But it does scale quite a lot with focus. So if you want to just do a fun heal as much as possible build, just to see how much healing you can get out of her, you can try to put into that tree and see
into this one and in this one. Okay. Yeah.
Now, but she doesn't give her army offensive abilities, so that's the issue with her healing so much. You want to benefit from healing so that she can do damage, because her army's not really going to do very much unless you just have a unit composition that counters the enemy inherently. Then that could work.
All right, sounds good. So now let's do the let's talk about, you had a third tree you said that was the fun tree you said, or the fun build.
Right. So because Galadriel's healing ability, the Ring of Water.
Yes, Nenya.
The healing one, the Ring of Water. That one actually does so much healing, but it only applies to one unit. She really can benefit from just stacking a single unit. And I know that a lot of people are maybe familiar with her Mumakil stacking build. And I even at one point when I was using her, I just ran a Cataphract stacking build for like the last few weeks of a season. And it was really, really good, because those things are super tanky, and they just do a great job basically absorbing damage so that Galadriel could keep dishing out damage. But we now know how useful the tier 2 knights are at also reducing damage. And so instead of using a cataphract stack, if you want like a budget PvP build, you can use either the Honor Cast, which was preferable because it gives a lot of focus. It gives 30 focus at max. And you can take Blinding Barrier, and that will help to go ahead and mitigate the elemental damage that they'll receive. And then you can also make them super tanky by going into that R5 tree and giving them the magical barrier. And then what happens is they'll just tank way more than you would expect from any tier 2 unit, and she'll just go ahead and keep dishing out tons of focus damage. And
okay.
Because you're using a tier 2, you're probably going to benefit economy wise from the fight more than, you know, you'll do more damage to them than they'll do to you because you're saving on the unit cost of what you're losing.
Got it.
So it's a pretty fun build. Everything else is pretty much just try to get her focus as high as possible. Don't worry about trying to give too much damage to your actual units themselves. If it's just icing on the cake, if it works out that you have something that gives focus and then also gives your army some damage or some defense. But I would definitely say, as far as purple items go, the Carver with Smite is probably the best for her because she does so much focus damage.
That
would be
right here. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And you take the Carver with Smite, and it's going to do quite a bit of damage when it triggers because she gets all this bonus focus damage on her trees. So that will do quite a bit. And I would recommend that as far as purple gear, or the Njoldir sword with Mind Split. Any weapon with Mind Split would be pretty good with her too. Just because those do more focus damage. And then whatever type of focused chest piece you can get too. If you're just sticking to purple, I do kind of recommend the focus protection item, because if you ever get madness done to you, then it will help you to not do too much damage to your own units.
Oh, yes.
And it will reduce how much damage you do to your own units. And also, your knights will be a little bit vulnerable to focus damage too, but the helmet will help with that. So that's one less thing to worry about. And then accessories almost all give a ton of focus. So you just pick whatever you want. I will say that the Hithlane feels better than the sustain pipe, because the Hithlane heals the one single unit by a bunch too. And even though it doesn't scale with focus,
using the knights,
it does scale actually with HP. So when you're looking to do healing abilities, the amount of health that a unit has that you're healing actually increases how much healing is done to it.
Oh, and that matters then if you have one large group of
and so
units.
The fact that the Hithlane gives +3 army HP and then does 120% of their HP of a command, it's actually going to heal quite a lot. So, because you have a single. So I would say that would be a really good budget build. You could run it on all purple items. You could run it on a tier 2 unit, and it will be much more effective than you might expect in PvP.
Now, what about if she is, what is she, Commander? She's strategist?
A strategist.
Yeah, so what if you had this item and they had a not budget build? Something like this, with that increase in her damage against any of her builds.
I think that's a really cool item. I love it, especially when it's fully refined out. My only downside is I always feel like 60% is too RNG based. I prefer much higher percents before I get behind an item, just because it could be a bummer when you have so much value put into something and it doesn't even trigger for you.
Correct. So then to finish up that fun build information, what would, that's wrong character. To finish it up, what would you say then in order for that fun build then? What would you focus on in order?
You would do all of Mistress of Magic first.
Okay. So these all maxed. Okay.
Yeah, and then you would do all of Ninja's Guardian.
Okay. All right.
It's the same build as the good side build, except you're also covering the fact that you have, instead of taking high alert, you have the helmet to reduce elemental damage.
Yes, so you don't have to worry about this.
So you could put points into White Council and into high alert, but I honestly would probably just do the Lady of Lorien and maybe even Purity to just remove the debuffs, because there are some debuffs that will help have those knights taking extra damage from things. And so I would just kind of sprinkle into that in the end and just hope it matters. I mean, you could do White Council, but I feel like it hurts to put points into it for a single unit
Since you already have a helmet that's reducing.
Yeah, and you already
anyway.
have elemental damage resistance from the helmet. So
it's always a trade.
It's not going to be as high as high alert gets. Or, well, actually, it's the same, right? Is it 50% when it's maxed out for the helmet?
The helmet is. Is it? Let me just look. It might actually be 60. It's 60.
Yeah, so it's already better than high alert on its own. Plus the fact that you could do high alert to get a couple extra percentages in there. But at a certain point, you know, you're kind of
it's always a trade-off in this game, right? You're always trying to find the best trade-off build. I mean, that's where the strategy comes in, right? In this game, that's what makes it fun for us people who like to do strategy things. And then there's always the little things that happen. And you're like, oh, you learned something. So anyway, hopefully this helped you guys out, though. Now, one last question for you, Jethros, before we finish. What about if you are going to try to use it for tile taking? I know you already said that's not really a great idea, but what would be the ideal build, do you think, to take tiles? If she's rank 5, I'm saying. Because, of course, rank 1, you just use her rank 1 trees.
When you say tile taking, do you mean like 200,
like 200s?
230?
Yeah, like mid tile taking. Because obviously early is pretty easy, but
because if that's what we're talking about, then I would say you're gonna have enough points by the time you're looking to take those to put points into Mistress of Magic first, and then do the rest into Ninja's Guardian healing.
Okay, all right, so pretty much similar.
And Ring of Water, because you're probably going to have to put points into Ninja's Guardian at like level 1 or 5 or whatever level you start off in, and then do the healing to just have sustain early. Because if you try to put points into her magic damage early without being able to actually max it out,
units will
you're going to barely do anything, because that actual ability itself doesn't do anything unless you have something else to benefit it from it. So you need the other abilities. So I would probably do 2 points Mistress of Magic, and then 1 point in Surge, 1 point in Focus Wraith, and I would keep doing that until that tree is maxed out, and then I would just do Ninja's Guardian and Water Ring.
But
of
you
Water.
recommend no on tile taking for Galadriel. You lose too many troops.
Yeah, I'm just
early.
saying don't do it. Just mock battle her till she's like level 25, 30, and then she can do a decent amount of damage and a little bit of healing.
Yeah,
you know,
and we're just talking. Yeah, and for people who are going to be like, "Oh, she can do it," we understand that any commander can take tiles. We're just talking about what's the most efficient commanders to take tiles, because you want to lose as little troops as you can early. Because when you lose troops, you have to wait for more to conscript. So really, the whole goal early is trying to lose as little troops as you can and take as many tiles as you can as fast as you can. Right, that's the whole goal of the beginning of the game, which most people know this, but just to reiterate that out loud. And then also one last question I have for you. I see that her max level, her normal attacks now cause focus damage. Does that work with items that counter, or are those only for physical? Like what is it? The special weapon that when they do a normal attack, they have a chance to do the normal attack. Right.
You're asking if it still triggers the other ability?
Yeah, the one that does. It gives like an extra chance at ability. Right.
Yeah, like Smite, right?
Yeah. Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
Well, Smite already does focus damage. I'm talking about. Let me see if I can find the ability real quick. I'm curious if this, like this one. Oh, but it says it does physical damage, so it wouldn't change this to.
No, it doesn't change what type of damage that is, but it still counts as a normal attack, so it would trigger. It would just trigger as physical damage, which she's gonna have like none.
Got it.
So it's not really that.
So there's really not a huge point to use that. Got it. Okay. I was just curious about that with the particular wording of the ability. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I think we covered that pretty well, Jethros. Very impressive. Anyway, Jethros is using her this season, so maybe you'll get to see her in action and stuff if we do a live thing or something. See some battles, maybe. So that would be a lot of fun. Anyway, my friends, anything else you want to add, Jethros, or should I end the video here?
No, I'm good.
I think we covered it pretty thoroughly.
Galadriel's a strategist. I'm a strategist. It all works out.
Yes. Very, very true indeed. All right, my friends, thank you so much for being here. Thanks to my Patreons right there. Really appreciate it. And subscribe button's going to be up there on the top left. I mean, no, above me. It's going to pop up right there on top of that. Next episode's up there, and Elotra Tailor-Made content is over there with voiceovers. But we have a lot of fun in RiseToWar too, and it was fun having my friend Jethros on. So you guys have a great day in Middle-earth. We'll see you all in the next episode of Voice of the Rings.